Joanna, sweetie, when are you going to find yourself a good man? I nearly choked on my coffee, caught off guard by Mom's sudden question. We were sitting in her cozy kitchen, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains she'd hung years ago. It was our weekly Sunday brunch tradition we'd kept since Dad passed away 5 years ago. Mom, please. Please, I sighed, setting down my mug. We've been through this. I'm happy with my life as it is. She reached across the table, patting my hand. I know, honey, but I worry about you. You work so hard, always taking care of everyone else. Don't you want someone to take care of you? I forced a smile, trying to hide my frustration. I can take care of myself just fine, Mom. Besides, I have you. That's sweet, dear, but I won't be around forever. Her words sent a chill down my spine. I just want to know you'll be settled before, well, you know. Mom, don't talk like that, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You're healthy as a horse. You'll outlive us all. She chuckled, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made my heart ache. Oh, Joanna, always the optimist. But life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? I couldn't argue with that. Life had certainly thrown us some curveballs over the years. Still, I wasn't about to let her dwell on morbid thoughts. Tell you what, I said, pulling out my phone. If it'll make you feel better, I'll sign up for one of those dating apps right now. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, would you? That would be wonderful. I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. All right, but don't get your hopes up. These things are usually full of creeps and weirdos. As I started filling out my profile, Mom peered over my shoulder. Oh, put that you like cooking and gardening. Men love a woman who can keep a nice home. Mom, I groaned. It's not 1950. I'm not looking for a husband to cook and clean for. She waved her hand dismissively. Times may change, but a man's stomach is still the way to his heart. Trust me on this. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from work. Sorry, Mom, I've got to run. Emergency at the office. She frowned, concern etched on her face. On a Sunday? Joanna, you work too hard. This is exactly why you need someone in your life. I kissed her cheek, grabbing my purse. I promise I'll finish setting up that dating profile later. Love you, Mom. As I hurried out to my car, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling her words had stirred up. Was she right? Was I missing out on something by focusing so much on my career and taking care of her? I shook my head, pushing the thoughts aside as I started the engine. There was no time for self-doubt now. I had a crisis to manage at work. Little did I know, as I pulled out of Mom's driveway, that this conversation would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change my life forever. The simple act of creating that dating profile would set in motion a chain reaction of love, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. But for now, all I could think about was getting to the office and putting out whatever fire had erupted on my day off. As I merged onto the highway, my phone buzzed again. Glancing at the screen, I saw a notification from the dating app. You have a new match! I couldn't help but laugh. Mom would be thrilled. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be such a bad idea after all. If only I had known then what I know now. But isn't that always the way? We make choices, thinking we're in control, never realizing how those small decisions can snowball into life-altering moments. As I pulled into the office parking lot, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever chaos awaited me inside. Little did I know, the real chaos was yet to come, and it would start with a simple swipe right on a dating app. I never expected a simple swipe right to change my life so dramatically. But there I was, 6 months after that fateful Sunday brunch with Mom, sitting across from Ethan in a cozy Italian restaurant, my heart fluttering like a teenager's. So tell me more about your work in healthcare, I said, twirling pasta around my fork. Ethan's eyes lit up. It's fascinating, really. We're developing new systems to streamline patient care. I'm actually up for a big promotion next month. I couldn't help but be impressed. Here was a man with ambition, drive, and a genuine passion for helping others. It was refreshing after the string of duds I'd encountered on the dating app. That's wonderful, I smiled. I'm sure you'll get it. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Thanks, Joanna. You know, I've never met anyone quite like you. Your dedication to your mother, your work ethic, it's inspiring. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Was this what Mom had been talking about? The feeling of being truly seen and appreciated? As we left the restaurant, Ethan surprised me with a gentle kiss. "I'd like to see you again?" he said softly. "I'd like that too," I replied, my cheeks flushing. The next few months were a whirlwind. Ethan and I saw each other every chance we got. He was attentive, charming, and seemed to genuinely care about my life and my relationship with Mom. One evening, as we walked through the park near Mom's house, Ethan suddenly stopped and turned to face me. "Joanna," he said, his voice serious, "I know this might seem fast, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" I gasped, tears springing to my eyes. "Ethan, Yes! Yes, of course!" As he slipped the ring on my finger, I couldn't help but think of Mom. She was going to be over the moon, and she was. When we told her the news, she practically danced around the kitchen. "Oh, Joanna, I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. Ethan, welcome to the family." Ethan hugged her warmly. "Thank you, Emily. I promise to take good care of your daughter." Mom's eyes misted over. "I know you will. You're a good man, Ethan." The wedding planning flew by in a blur of cake tastings, dress fittings, and venue tours. Before I knew it, I was standing at the altar saying, "I do," to the man of my dreams. As we danced at the reception, I caught sight of Mom watching us, a proud smile on her face. I felt a pang of sadness, knowing I'd be moving out of her house and starting my new life with Ethan. "Don't worry," Ethan whispered, as if reading my thoughts. "We'll visit your mom all the time. She's family now, too." I hugged him tighter, grateful for his understanding. The next morning, as we packed up my things from Mom's house, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling of unease. Was I really ready for this big change? Mom must have sensed my hesitation. She pulled me aside while Ethan was loading the car. "Joanna, sweetie, are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Of course, Mom. Just a little overwhelmed, I guess." She cupped my face in her hands. "Marriage isn't always easy, honey. There will be ups and downs, but if you love each other and work at it, you'll be just fine." I nodded, trying to push down the doubt creeping into my mind. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? A loving husband, a new life, a chance at happiness. As we drove away from Mom's house, Ethan reached over and squeezed my hand. "Ready for our new adventure?" I smiled back at him, pushing my worries aside. Ready as I'll ever be. Little did I know, the real adventure and the real challenges were just beginning. As we pulled onto the highway towards our new home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was leaving more than just my old life behind. I was stepping into an unknown future, one that would test me in ways I never imagined. The honeymoon phase of our marriage faded faster than I ever imagined. 6 months in, and I found myself staring at a sink full of dirty dishes, wondering where it all went wrong. "Ethan," I called out, my voice echoing through our spacious new home. "Could you give me a hand with these dishes?" His reply came from the living room, barely audible over the sound of the TV. "Sorry, honey. I've got a big presentation tomorrow. Can't you handle it?" I bit back a sigh, reminding myself of his recent promotion. He was under a lot of pressure, after all. "Sure," I replied, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. "No problem." As I scrubbed at a particularly stubborn pot, I couldn't help but think of Mom. She'd always said marriage was about teamwork, but lately it felt like I was playing for both sides. The next morning, I woke to find Ethan already gone. A hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter read, "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight." I frowned, realizing this was the 3rd time this week he'd be working late. Pushing down my disappointment, I headed to work, determined to stay positive. At the office, my coworker Charlie greeted me with a warm smile. "Morning, Joanna. How's married life treating you?" I plastered on a smile. "Oh, you know, busy. Ethan's got a lot on his plate with the new position." Charlie's brow furrowed slightly. "And how about you? Are you doing okay?" His concern caught me off guard. When was the last time someone had asked me that? "I'm fine," I said, perhaps a bit too quickly, just adjusting to the new routine. As the day wore on, I found myself thinking about Charlie's question. Was I okay? The nagging doubt I'd felt on my wedding day seemed to be growing, despite my best efforts to ignore it. That evening, I decided to surprise Ethan at his office. Maybe a nice dinner out would help us reconnect. As I approached his building, I saw him exiting with a group of colleagues, laughing and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. "Ethan," I called out, waving. His head snapped up, surprise and something else. Was it annoyance? Flashing across his face. Joanna? What are you doing here? I faltered, suddenly feeling foolish. I thought maybe we could grab dinner. He glanced at his watch, then back at his colleagues. Actually, we were just heading out to discuss the presentation. Rain check? Before I could respond, he was gone, swallowed up by the crowd of suits and briefcases. I stood there, feeling invisible and small. At home, I called Mom, desperate for her reassuring voice. "Hi, sweetie," she answered on the first ring. "How are you?" The dam broke. Through tears, I poured out my frustrations, the loneliness, the uneven distribution of household chores, the growing distance between Ethan and me. Mom listened patiently, then said, "Oh, Joanna, marriage takes work, remember? Have you talked to Ethan about how you're feeling?" I wiped my eyes, feeling a mix of shame and resolve. No, not really. I didn't want to add to his stress. "Honey," Mom's voice was gentle but firm, "your feelings matter too. You need to communicate with each other." After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table, waiting for Ethan. It was well past midnight when I heard his key in the lock. "Ethan," I started as he stumbled in, the smell of alcohol clinging to him. "We need to talk." He waved a dismissive hand. "Not now, Joanna. I'm beat." "No," I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "Now. This can't wait." Ethan's eyes narrowed, a flash of something unfamiliar, almost cruel, crossing his face. "What's your problem? I'm working my ass off to provide for us, and this is the thanks I get?" His words hit me like a physical blow. As he stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind him, I sat frozen, the realization dawning on me like a cold, harsh light. This wasn't just a rough patch. This was the unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Ethan, about the life we were supposed to be building together. As the first rays of dawn crept through the window, I made a silent vow to myself. Things had to change. I just didn't know then how drastic that change would need to be. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the pre-dawn silence. My heart raced as I fumbled for it, instantly awake. Late-night calls never brought good news. "Joanna?" My neighbor's voice trembled. "It's your mother. The ambulance just left. You need to get to the hospital now." The world tilted on its axis. I leapt out of bed, my mind a whirlwind of panic and disbelief. "Ethan," I called out, but the other side of the bed was empty. Another late night at the office, no doubt. I drove to the hospital in a daze, praying to every deity I could think of. This couldn't be happening. Not Mom. Not now. The emergency room was a blur of harsh lights and antiseptic smells. A doctor approached, his face grave. "Mrs. Walker? I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but your mother suffered a massive stroke. She didn't make it." The words hit me like a physical blow. I crumpled to the floor, sobs racking my body. Mom, my rock, my constant, was gone. Just like that. Hours passed in a haze of paperwork and phone calls. As morning light crept through the hospital windows, I realized Ethan still hadn't returned my frantic messages. With shaking hands, I dialed his number again. "What is it, Joanna?" His irritated voice cut through my grief. "I'm in the middle of something important." "Ethan," I choked out. "Mom's gone. She had a stroke. I need you." There was a long pause. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Listen, I've got this huge presentation today. I can't get away. You understand, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ethan, my mother just died. I need my husband. And I need this promotion," he snapped. "We'll talk later." The line went dead. Numbness washed over me. In my darkest hour, when I needed him most, Ethan had abandoned me. The realization was like a knife to my heart. Charlie from work arrived at the hospital an hour later, concern etched on his face. "Joanna, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" His kindness broke through my shock. I collapsed into his arms, letting out the tears I'd been holding back. Charlie held me, murmuring words of comfort, being the support I so desperately needed. The next few days passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and well-wishers. Ethan made a brief appearance at the wake, all polished smiles and hollow condolences, before rushing off again. I was too numb to even feel angry anymore. As I stood at Mom's graveside, watching her casket being lowered into the ground, a strange calm settled over me. I remembered her words from so long ago. "Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it?" "Oh, Mom, if only you knew." Back at home, I found Ethan packing a suitcase. "Business trip," he said curtly. "I'll be gone for a week." Something inside me snapped. "A week, Ethan. We need to talk about what happened. About us." He sighed, exasperated. "What's there to talk about? Your mother died. It's sad. Life goes on. I have responsibilities, Joanna. I can't put my career on hold for your grief." His callousness stunned me into silence. As he brushed past me, heading for the door, he paused. "Oh, here," he said, fishing in his pocket. He pressed something small and cold into my palm. "Light a candle for your mom or something." I opened my hand to find a single nickel. The door slammed behind him before I could respond. Standing alone in our empty house, that pitiful nickel burning in my hand, I felt a shift deep within me. The fog of grief parted, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't a marriage. It was a sham, a prison of my own making. Mom would be heartbroken to see me like this, wasting away in a loveless union with a man who couldn't even pretend to care about my pain. As I clutched that insulting nickel, I made a vow to myself and to Mom's memory. This ends now. I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way out. I'm going to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my future. Little did I know, the path to that future would be paved with shocking revelations and a thirst for justice I never knew I possessed. The day of Mom's funeral dawned gray and somber, a perfect reflection of my shattered heart. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my black dress, feeling like a hollow shell of the woman I once was. Ethan's absence loomed large, a gaping wound in my already fragile psyche. As I entered the church, a sea of sympathetic faces turned towards me. I plastered on a brave smile, accepting hugs and condolences with robotic grace. Then I saw him. Roger, Ethan's brother, making his way through the crowd. "Joanna," he said softly, enveloping me in a warm embrace. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Emily was an incredible woman." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Roger. I'm glad you could make it." He squeezed my hand. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it. I just wish." He trailed off, a strange expression crossing his face. "What is it?" I asked, suddenly alert. Roger hesitated, then pulled me aside. "Joanna, there's something you should know. Ethan, he's not at work today." My brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He said he had an important presentation. "I ran into his boss at the coffee shop this morning," Roger explained, his voice low. "He mentioned that Ethan had taken bereavement leave for the week, said he was impressed by Ethan's dedication to family." The world tilted on its axis. That's not possible. Ethan told me he couldn't get away from work," he said. Roger's face was a mixture of anger and pity. "I'm sorry, Joanna. I thought you should know." As the funeral service began, my mind raced. Where was Ethan? Why had he lied? The questions swirled, threatening to drown out the pastor's words of comfort. After the service, as mourners filed past Mom's casket, I caught sight of a familiar face. Charlie, my coworker, stood at the back of the church, his eyes filled with concern. Our gazes locked, and in that moment, I felt a flicker of warmth in my cold, numb heart. Later at the wake, I found myself in Mom's kitchen, surrounded by well-meaning relatives and casseroles. The chatter faded to white noise as I struggled to process Roger's revelation. "Joanna?" Charlie's gentle voice cut through my thoughts. "Can I get you anything?" I looked up, meeting his kind eyes. "Actually, could you just sit with me for a moment?" He nodded, taking the seat beside me. We sat in companionable silence, a stark contrast to the constant tension I felt with Ethan. As the last of the mourners trickled out, I made a decision. I couldn't let this go. I needed answers. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Ethan's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried his office next. "Hello, Joanna," his secretary answered. "I'm so sorry about your mother. How are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I replied, my voice tight. "Is Ethan there? I really need to speak with him." There was a pause. "Ethan? No, he's out on bereavement leave this week. Didn't he tell you?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "Right, of course. Thank you." I ended the call, my mind reeling. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. Charlie appeared at my side, concern etched on his face. "Joanna, what's wrong?" I looked up at him, feeling something shift inside me. The grief, the betrayal, the years of neglect, it all crystallized into a single, burning point of resolve. "Charlie," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need your help. There's something I have to do." As I outlined my plan, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, the moment I'd start taking back control of my life. Whatever Ethan was hiding, wherever he was, I was going to find out. Mom's voice echoed in my head. "Life has a way of surprising us." Well, Mom, I thought grimly, it's time I did some surprising of my own. Little did I know, the surprises awaiting me would shake the very foundation of my world and set me on a path I never could have imagined. The next morning I woke with a steely determination. Roger had agreed to help me uncover the truth about Ethan, and we wasted no time. As a lawyer, Roger had connections that could prove invaluable. I've got a friend in the HR department at Ethan's company, Roger said as we sat in his office. She owes me a favor. Are you sure you want to do this, Joanna? I nodded, my jaw set. I need to know, Roger. All of it. Hours later, we sat surrounded by a mountain of documents. Financial reports, emails, meeting minutes, all painting a picture that made my stomach churn. Joanna, Roger's voice was grave. This goes beyond just lying about work. Look at these discrepancies in the financial reports. And these emails, Ethan's been manipulating data, covering up mistakes. This could be grounds for dismissal, maybe even legal action. My head spun. The Ethan I thought I knew was crumbling before my eyes, replaced by a stranger I didn't recognize. Just then my phone buzzed. A text from Charlie. Found something. Meet me at the cafe across from Ethan's office, ASAP. Go, Roger urged. I'll keep digging here. 20 minutes later I rushed into the cafe, spotting Charlie in a corner booth. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Charlie, what is it? I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. He pushed a manila envelope towards me. I followed Ethan, like you asked. Joanna, I'm so sorry, but... With trembling hands I opened the envelope. Inside were photos, Ethan entering a hotel, arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday, during Mom's funeral. The world tilted on its axis. I felt like I was going to be sick. There's more, Charlie said softly. I overheard them talking. Ethan's been embezzling money from the company. He's planning to leave the country, Joanna. Soon. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, was a lie. My phone rang, startling us both. It was Roger. Joanna, you need to get back here now. I've found something big. The next few hours passed in a blur. Roger had uncovered a trail of fraudulent activities stretching back years. Ethan hadn't just been lying about work. He'd been systematically defrauding his company, manipulating data to cover his tracks. We need to report this, Roger said, his face grim. Joanna, I know he's my brother, but what he's done, it's criminal. I nodded, numb. Do it. As Roger made the calls, I sat in stunned silence. How had I been so blind? So naive? The weight of my mother's absence hit me anew. She would have seen through Ethan's facade in an instant. Just then, my phone lit up with a text from Ethan. Working late. Don't wait up. Something inside me snapped. No more lies. No more deception. I stood abruptly. I'm going home, I announced. I'm going to pack my things and leave. I can't be there when he comes back. Charlie and Roger exchanged worried glances. You shouldn't be alone, Charlie said. Let me come with you. As we drove to my house, no, Ethan's house, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. The life I thought I had was gone, shattered beyond repair. But in its place, I felt the stirrings of something new, something stronger. Walking into the house, I headed straight for the bedroom. Charlie closed behind. As I pulled out a suitcase, my eyes fell on the framed photo of Ethan and me on our wedding day. With a sudden, fierce movement, I swept it off the dresser, watching it shatter on the floor. Joanna? Charlie said softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. I turned to face him, tears streaming down my cheeks. It's over, Charlie. All of it. I don't know what happens next, but I know I can't stay here another minute. As I zipped up my suitcase, I heard the front door open. Ethan's voice called out, Joanna? Are you home? My blood ran cold. This was it, the moment of truth, and I was ready for it. My heart pounded as Ethan's footsteps echoed through the house. Charlie squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Joanna? Ethan called again, his voice closer now. What's going on? Whose car is that outside? I stepped out of the bedroom. Charlie closed behind me. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the scene. My packed suitcase, Charlie's presents, the shattered wedding photo on the floor. What the hell is this? He demanded, his face flushing with anger. It's over, Ethan, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I know everything. The lies, the affair, the embezzlement, all of it. Ethan's face paled, then twisted into a sneer. You don't know anything, he spat. You're just a naive little girl playing detective. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos Charlie had taken. How about these, or the financial records Roger uncovered? For a moment, Ethan looked genuinely shocked, then his expression hardened. So what, you think you can just walk away, after everything I've done for you? Done for me? You've done nothing but lie and cheat. You couldn't even be there for me when my mother died. Ethan's eyes darted to Charlie, then back to me. And what's this? You're leaving me for him? He took a menacing step forward. Charlie moved to stand between us. Back off, Ethan. It's over. Ethan's fist connected with Charlie's jaw before I could react. Charlie stumbled back, and I screamed as Ethan lunged for me. But Charlie was quicker. He tackled Ethan to the ground, pinning him down. Joanna, call the police, he shouted. With shaking hands, I dialed 911. As I reported the situation, I watched Ethan struggle against Charlie's hold, cursing and threatening us both. The next hour passed in a blur. The police arrived, taking statements and photographing Charlie's bruised face. Ethan was led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats and accusations. As the chaos subsided, I sank onto the couch, exhausted. Charlie sat beside me, holding an ice pack to his jaw. Are you okay? He asked softly. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I can't believe it's really over, I whispered. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Roger. Joanna, I've got more bad news. Ethan's company just called. They're pressing charges for the embezzlement. It's bad. Really bad. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. When I opened them again, I saw Charlie watching me with concern. What do you need? He asked simply. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I need to leave, I said, standing up. Not just this house, but this whole life. I can't stay here, surrounded by all these memories and lies. Charlie nodded, understanding in his eyes. Where will you go? I thought of Mom, of all the dreams and plans we'd shared. There's a little town on the coast Mom always talked about retiring to. I think I'll start there. As I packed the last of my belongings, my eyes fell on the nickel Ethan had given me to light a candle for Mom. With a sudden, fierce movement, I snatched it up and shoved it in my pocket. Charlie helped me load my car, then hesitated. Joanna, I care about you. A lot, but I understand if you need space. I looked at him, really looked at him, for what felt like the first time. Come with me, I said impulsively. Just for a while. I could use a friend. As we drove away from the house that had once been my home, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. Everything I'd known was gone, shattered like that wedding photo on the bedroom floor. But as I glanced at Charlie, saw the open road ahead of us, I felt something else too. Hope. The nickel weighed heavy in my pocket, a reminder of all I'd lost, but also a promise of what was to come. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. I was done being the naive, trusting Joanna. It was time to forge a new path on my own terms. As we crossed the city limits, I took a deep breath. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 6 months after leaving Ethan, I stood on the beach of the small coastal town Mom had always dreamed of retiring to. The salty breeze whipped through my hair as I clutched the nickel that had become a symbol of my past. My phone buzzed, a text from Roger. It's over. Ethan took a plea deal. 10 years. You won't have to testify. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a pang of sadness. Not for Ethan, but for the life I thought I'd have. I showed the message to Charlie, who stood beside me. How do you feel? He asked, his hand finding mine. Free, I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. Just then my phone rang. It was Ethan, calling from jail. My hand trembled as I answered. Joanna, his voice was desperate. Please, you have to help me. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. I did it for us, for our future. I closed my eyes, remembering the lies, the betrayal, the years of manipulation. No, Ethan, I said firmly. You did it for yourself, always for yourself. Goodbye. I ended the call, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Charlie squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. Come on, he said softly. There's something I want to show you. We walked along the beach to a small animal shelter. Inside, a scruffy mutt with soulful eyes caught my attention. This is Chance, the shelter worker said. He's had a rough go of it, but he's got a lot of love to give. As I knelt to pet him, Chance licked my face, his tail wagging furiously. I felt something shift inside me, a spark of joy I hadn't felt since Mom died. I'll take him, I said, surprising myself. Later, as Charlie and I walked Chance along the shore, I spotted an old wishing well near the boardwalk. A memory flashed. Mom and me, years ago, tossing coins and making wishes. I pulled out the nickel, turning it over in my palm. You know, I said to Charlie, Mom always said that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of the past. With a deep breath, I tossed the nickel into the well. As it disappeared into the darkness, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. So, Charlie said, a hint of nervousness in his voice, what now? I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the kindness and love that had been there all along. Now, I said, we build something new, together. As if on cue, Chance barked happily, chasing seagulls along the shore. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. Over the next few months, life took on a new rhythm. I threw myself into volunteer work at the animal shelter, honoring Mom's memory by supporting the causes she loved. Charlie and I took things slow, building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Charlie turned to me. You know, Joanna, you're not the same woman I met all those months ago. I nodded, understanding what he meant. I'm stronger now? Wiser? And happier? He asked, a hint of hope in his voice. I smiled, leaning in to kiss him softly. Happier than I've ever been. As night fell, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the loss. It had all shaped me, made me who I was now. But it didn't define me anymore. I was Joanna, daughter, friend, animal lover, and now a woman ready to love again. Mom would be proud, I thought. She always said life had a way of surprising us. Looking at Charlie, at Chance curled up at our feet, at the life we were building together, I realized Mom was right. Life does surprise us. But sometimes, if we're brave enough, we can surprise ourselves even more. As the stars came out, twinkling over the ocean, I made a silent vow. To live fully, to love deeply, and to always, always trust my own strength. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. After all, this wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a whole new chapter.